The moment the lights went out, cities didn't just disappear from enemy skies. They quietly learned how to stay warm in the dark. That's the part of the blackout story almost no one talks about. During World War II, blackout curtains weren't only about hiding from bombers. In cold, fuel-starved cities, they became an accidental but powerful survival tool, one that helped millions of civilians trap heat, save energy, and endure winters when coal, gas, and electricity were painfully scarce. And once you see how it worked, you'll never look at a darkened window the same way again. By 1939, cities across Britain, Germany, and much of Europe were preparing for aerial warfare. The threat was simple and terrifying. Light meant targets. A single uncovered window could guide bombers straight to a neighbourhood. Governments responded fast. Blackout regulations were strict, enforced, and universal. After sunset, every crack of light had to disappear. Curtains thickened. Shutters returned from centuries past. Blankets, cardboard, and even painted fabric were pressed into service. What began as a defensive measure quickly reshaped how people lived inside their homes. But wartime reality added another pressure. Fuel shortages, coal rationing, power cuts. In cities like London during the winter of 1940 and 1941, heating a home became a daily challenge. Fires burned low, radiators went cold, families huddled into fewer rooms. That's when people started noticing something unexpected. You know, blackout curtains did more than just block out the light. They actually blocked heat loss too. Homes of the early 20th century, well, they really were not built for energy efficiency. Single-pane windows leaked warmth constantly, and cold air would just creep right in. Warm air escaped just as fast, honestly. In winter, windows were often the weakest point in the entire house. When blackout rules forced people to cover those windows with heavy layered materials, well, something changed. Rooms stayed warmer for longer, and drafts dropped noticeably. This wasn't theory, it was lived experience. Civilians began reporting that rooms with blackout curtains felt significantly warmer at night than those without. In a time when every lump of coal mattered, that discovery was huge. The effectiveness came down to layers and air gaps. Most blackout setups use thick fabric, often doubled or tripled, mounted tightly over windows. Some families added cardboard or newspaper between layers. Others used old coats, wool blankets, or felt. These layers trapped pockets of still air, and still air is an excellent insulator. Heat inside the room hit the curtain instead of the cold glass. The air pocket slowed heat transfer. The cold outside struggled to push its way in. In some homes, curtains were fitted not just to the window frame, but extended well beyond it, sealing the edges. That reduced convection, which is, one of the main ways heat escapes. Even without understanding the physics, people refined the method through trial and error. By winter, blackout curtains had become part of a larger heat management strategy. In dense urban areas, the effect multiplied. Apartment buildings, terraced houses, and tightly packed streets meant less exposed surface area. When entire blocks sealed their windows every night, heat loss across the neighbourhood dropped. During the Blitz, Londoners often spent nights in interior rooms or shelters. But when they stayed home, blackout curtains helped retain warmth through those long freezing nights, which were punctuated by air raid sirens. In Germany, similar practices appeared during Allied bombing campaigns. Cities under blackout orders saw widespread use of window coverings that doubled as insulation. And in occupied Europe, where fuel shortages were often even worse, blackout materials became truly precious. This wasn't comfort, it was survival. While blackout rules were designed for air defence, wartime governments quickly realised the energy-saving benefits. Public information campaigns began encouraging people to seal windows properly, reduce drafts, and conserve fuel. In Britain, leaflets and radio broadcasts emphasised, heat economy. People were told to hang curtains at dusk, block unused fireplaces, and close doors tightly. Blackout curtains were mentioned not just as a legal requirement, but as a practical aid. The message was clear. Every saved degree meant less coal burned. Less coal meant more resources for factories, ships, and, the war effort. So, the blackout window trick, it became unofficial policy. There's another layer to this story that, often gets overlooked. Warmth equals morale. Cold really wears people down. It drains energy, weakens resistance to illness, and honestly chips away at mental strength. In wartime cities already dealing with fear, fatigue, and loss, staying warm mattered more than comfort. It was emotional survival. Families gathered in blackout-darkened rooms, lit by a single shaded lamp or candle wrapped in thick air that held on to the day's heat. Outside, the city vanished into darkness. Inside, warmth created a sense of safety and control. That mattered more than any regulation. Here's where the story gets practical. The blackout window trick is essentially passive insulation using materials you already have. No electricity, no modern tech, just understanding heat loss and stopping it. In emergency situations today, power outages, fuel shortages, extreme cold, the same principles apply. Covering windows with thick fabric, sealing gaps, and creating air pockets can dramatically improve indoor temperatures. This is especially useful in older buildings, tents, cabins, or temporary shelters. Even a simple blanket hung over a window can reduce heat loss. Add layers, add space, add coverage beyond the frame. World War II civilians didn't have energy-efficient glass or central heating controls. They had necessity. And, necessity forced them to rediscover old knowledge. One of the most fascinating parts of this story is how people reframed darkness. Instead of seeing blackout conditions as purely restrictive, they adapted. Darkness became protection. Darkness became warmth. Darkness became a resource. That mindset is at the heart of historical survival skills, using what's forced on you and turning it into an advantage. WWII blackout windows are a perfect example of that philosophy in action. No gadgets, no innovation headlines, just smart use of materials and physics. Today, we live surrounded by convenience. Thermostats, insulation, double glazing. But emergencies don't care about comfort. Power grids fail. Fuel prices spike. Weather turns brutal. You know, the lessons from World War II cities are still relevant because, well, they're simple, proven, and human scale. They don't depend on supply chains. Instead, they rely on awareness. Understanding how blackout curtains trapped heat, it really helps us understand how homes lose energy. And once you see that, you can take control in ways most people never even think about. That's the legacy of survival. The blackout window trick wasn't a secret weapon. It wasn't invented in a lab. It emerged quietly, night after night, in millions of homes under threat. People adapted. They observed. They shared what worked. And without realizing it, they turned a wartime restriction into a life-preserving technique. History is full of moments like this. Small decisions, everyday materials, outsized impact. And that's exactly why they're worth remembering. If you enjoyed uncovering this forgotten survival trick, make sure to like this video and share it with someone who loves hidden history. Subscribe to Legacy of Survival for more real-world lessons pulled straight from the past. And stick around, because the next story might change how you see your own home when the lights go out.